Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of boards, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, I'll be reviewing the sourcebook Titanhall Academy, Rivals of Strixhaven, designed by Lucas Anderson with Marius, Brunner, Joanna, DeLaune, Daniel King, and Joe Gaylord for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This review has been sponsored by the publisher, and a review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you are interested in a sponsored review, please reach out via email, Twitter, or Discord, or my submission form at roguewatson.com. If you enjoy my content, consider using my affiliate links for online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Also, full disclosure, Lucas is a Patreon. Does that mean I will go easy on this product? It does not. So Titanhall Academy, as you can tell by the subtitle, is meant to be a sister school to Strixhaven, which I believe was released last year, 2021, based on the Magic the Gathering set, which was the classic magical school genre. And it featured a bunch of different colleges, all of different schools, and then they adapted that to Dungeons & Dragons, which included new player backgrounds, a new race, a lot of new spells, and even a full level 1 through 10 campaign. So, if you're going to release a product that is designed to be the martial version of Strixhaven, first of all, I think that's a cool idea. Martials, as we all know, don't quite get as much love as the spellcasters, although a spellcasting school is in itself a neat idea. Obviously, Harry Potter's not the first one to come up with that, but certainly popularized that. A non-spellcasting school is just a school, but you could still do some fun things with it. There's magic items, there's all the different fantasy races and all that. In fact, Titanhall Academy was founded by giants instead of dragons, which is kind of a neat little history there. I do think it's overall, unfortunately, I have to compare it to Strixhaven because it wants me to compare it to Strixhaven, and I was pretty positive on Strixhaven with all the content that we get, and this one is about 50 pages, which feels like a lot, but most of that is dedicated to the fun NPCs, which is definitely fun, and I enjoy that. And then some magic items, some one-player background per school, and a few stat blocks. We do not get any kind of adventure content here, and you have to use a lot of the rule sets and systems from Strixhaven in order to actually run things like the extracurricular activities and the exams and the relationship system. So this, instead of being a rival release, this kind of acts almost more of an expansion pack to Strixhaven, to where you basically, it requires Strixhaven and yet says, hey, what if your characters don't want to be in a magic school and instead they can go to this school? I don't feel like there's necessarily enough content here for your players to actually go to this school, but there is enough content if your players wanted this perhaps as a background, and especially the player backgrounds are very, very good. So the 5 new colleges are Saber Guard, Memnor, Fellforge, Leaf Cloak, and I don't know how to pronounce this one, Hirtzer. Kind of a Nordic name. Although you'd think that would be like the Barbarian one, but it's much more of a monk vibe, and I feel like the Barbarians one's actually kind of missing here. So we'll start with Saber Guard is the like the strategist, which is not technically its own class in D&D, but it's basically the more intellectual fighter, the one who wants to plan tactics, kind of just your high intelligence warrior of any class, really. Memnor is definitely your skulkers, deception. It's very much your rogue school. Also bards, though. Any kind of deception or stealing, assassinating is all about Memnor. Fellforge is actually about crafting weapons, which is interesting, because that's not obviously a class in D&D. It's just something kind of anybody can do, and a lot of player systems don't really interact with that. So that was kind of a bold choice to choose a whole class versus crafting, but it's it's as fully fledged as anybody else is on the other schools. And then we've got Leaf Cloak, which is the outdoorsy one. So it's a bunch of rangers, guerrilla warfare, survival tactics, living amongst the elements, all that good stuff. Your Boy Scouts basically. And then Hirtzer is the spiritual meditation, your high wisdom warriors, essentially, monks, kind of paladins, I guess, also the ones that have more of a code to them. So what are we missing? Well, we're kind of missing Barbarians here. And again, I thought Hirtzer might have been that one, even though they have an arena, so they kind of battle a lot, but it really, and the professor's actually a Minotaur who doesn't give a shit about his own philosophy, which is funny. I do like the NPCs a lot, just reading through the descriptions. That's definitely the designer's strong suit here, was creating really memorable, fun NPCs that I really loved. In fact, just to rattle off some, we've got half-dragons, Dampiers, Minotaurs, Giants, Haringons, which are the ones from Wild Beyond the Witchlight, Owlin, which were added in Strixhaven, Drow, Warforged, like every single kind of creature you could hope to find. And the professors are interesting. There's a giant spider in Felforge who's like a crafter, a weaver of silks. The head of Memnor is just a fucking dragon, like a copper dragon who invites his own students to steal from his hoard, and if they can do it successfully, then they gain the item, and if they don't, they get eaten. It's pretty hardcore. So I like a lot of the NPCs and stuff. I just wish there were more adventure content that actually used those NPCs, either a literal adventure or at least some more like adventure hooks or ideas or something. Again, Strixhaven had a full level 1 through 10 campaign divided into 4 chunks, where each chunk took place over a different year, and so it was a different tier of gameplay. So it was very, very impressive, and unfortunately this just doesn't have any of that kind of adventure content. Also, of course, we don't have spells here, which is a bummer, but was designed like this to be more of a martial thing. Instead, they kind of replaced that with some feats, some really helpful player backgrounds, and some new combat options. I particularly like the called shot mechanics here, which reminds me of the Fallout games, where you can choose to attack with disadvantage. You can't already have disadvantage, and also reduce your weapon attack by 1 die. And if you do, you can basically target certain limbs, or like the head, or attempt to trip, and basically do something extra in combat, which feels very cool. And it really helps, give martial something extra to do, particularly in lower levels. I think once you get into higher levels, a lot of martials tend to have different abilities, built on. Especially, if you're a fighter, everybody's taking Battle Master, which means Battle Master should just be plugged into the goddamn base fighter class anyway. Some of these, in fact, most of these are actually from the Dungeon Master's Guide. Read your Dungeon Master's Guide, people. The disarm, mark, tumble, flanking, all of those rules are in there already, which is why I wanted to call out called shot specifically, because that was a new rule that I think would definitely go side by side with the rest of these. I think that is a cool feature. We do get a new race here, though. Strixhaven added the Owlins, and Titanhall Academy adds the Scootbacks, which are armadillos, armadillo folk, which is funny. I am from Texas, so I never thought I'd want to be an armadillo. That's a very adorable drawing of one. Mechanically, they are basically turtles. They've got the natural armor. They can even roll up, instead of a shell, they just kind of roll up into their ball. However, unlike turtles, they can move in their ball form and roll around, and then they can actually do a kind of hilarious charging fury attack called Ball of Fury. So that's pretty fun. But so it's not, a terribly inventive race, but it's hard to do that now with all the, if you include all the years and years of races we've got by now. But I'll give you a thumbs up because armadillo folk, that's adorable. And then we go into each single different college campus. There are 5 of them. It does a thing that I'm not a fan of. I like, the editing and words and all that are fine. I'm not a fan of the way the background color changes. Okay. This is very nitpicky. I like the subheading text colors changing. I think that's a good change. I don't like the background color changing. I think that's a little too extreme, especially when you see them back to back, and especially once you go to like light to dark. I think that's a little too much. I realize it's nitpicky on me, but that's part of what I'm reviewing is the actual look of the product. I'm not going to include that as a huge con, but just kind of as a comment, like I would ease up on going a little too hard with the actual background color, but I would keep the text color. I think that looks pretty good. So again, we have the campus. We get a little bit of a description of the campus. We get some fun descriptions of NPCs and professors. And then there's a player option for each background, which usually adds or actually they all add a new fighting style, which is very much tied to the college campus. At 4th level, they can all summon their own mount version, which the only really interesting one I think is the Felforge one, because you have like a robotic dragon mount, which seems freaking badass. Also, it seems a little powerful to give you at 4th level, is like everybody can just suddenly, it's a feat you have to take, but still, everybody can magically get like the Find Steed ability suddenly at 4th level. In fact, a lot of these player backgrounds seem very powerful because compared to the base backgrounds from, the player's handbook, which are kind of crap, these ones automatically become more powerful. They give you actual functional abilities you can use, and not just the, you can forge your signature sometimes kind of shit abilities. Everybody gets each college campus gets 3 magic items. I really like that each one is for different tiers of play. There's a common one you can give out to very low levels, usually an uncommon, rare, or very rare in the middle, and then at the top there's usually a very rare or legendary item. Maybe you give it like graduation or something. But they all seem very cool and tie in very nicely to the college themselves, and then the stat blocks for everybody, which includes I believe it's a professor, like an undergraduate, and then a graduate. Some of them have extra little things you can do, which I want to point out. The 2 that I really liked, because again, there's not a whole lot of fun. The extracurriculars and the jobs are just like well, I'll show you in a sec. We'll go back up to the top. They're just these brief little mentions here. Like there's no information on or details whatsoever. You have to plug in all the rules and things basically from Strixhaven in order to even kind of work these out, and it just doesn't seem like a lot of care and attention was paid to that. But on the other hand, for I believe it's Fellforge and Saber Guard, both have really cool extra side activities. Fellforge has fucking battle bots called Clobber and Clockworks, which has an entire rule system built up, and it really fits the campus idea. Very fun because they're all about crafting, weapons and items, and this way you're crafting like these magical, robots basically that battle each other, which I think is a really fun nod to that whole battle bots genre that was big years ago. I think that's a really neat idea and a fun system. And then Saber Guard, which again, these are the intellectual, tactical-minded students. They have a game called, I don't know how to pronounce this one either, called Tempellet. I don't know where the emphasis is in that word, but it is a tabletop war game with a bunch of pieces on the board, and you are just playing this board game battle against each other, and there's all these different rules and things. So I want to give a call out to those 2 things. Are very, very fun. I was hoping we'd get kind of more of that. At least get one of these fun things for every school. I guess Memnor has the dragon stealing thing. There's kind of rules for that. It's more tongue-in-cheek because it just mentions that the older kids, they then turn around and steal from the younger kids, which is pretty funny. Like if anybody manages to actually successfully steal from the dragon's hoard, the older ones come and just steal from them, and they learn an important lesson. I thought that was pretty funny. Otherwise, every single college is designed the same with all the different NPCs, which I do love the NPCs. I think there's a lot of fun details here, and this is the majority of the production value, and you should know that going into it. If you like running your school with a emphasis on relationships and all the NPCs you can meet, then that's great. The problem is that doesn't do me any good unless I've got like an adventure I can work around with that, and I don't want to start from scratch and then have to build up all these NPCs. Give me like at least the bare bone, give the framework, the skeleton of an adventure, and some of them do include that. Like there's, there'll be little bits, you really have to read them all, but one is like, there's one dwarf is, practicing throwing hexes underhanded, and he's going to try to, the next time they do this big arena fight, he's going to unleash this axe attack, but his girlfriend, who's another, NPC in here, isn't quite sure of that, and she might report him to that kind of stuff is what I wanted. Like, give me those drama moments, though. I mean, yeah, fun NPCs are fun, but give me the actual like story beats I can work around. That is what I was hoping to get. Otherwise, it's just, it's a very fancy dramatis personae without an actual adventure attached to it is what I really feel like, with some good player options though. I mean, it's got the very good backgrounds with the very nice fighting styles, some fun magic items, and some additional feats on top of that. Hirschjar is, again, that training monk campus that has like the contemplation garden. It's so weird that the head of combat is the Minotaur, who does not give a shit about his own campus philosophy, and apparently that's creating a big stir. There's a drow assassin who works for, I believe it's in Memnor, works for the dragon, but he works there because he failed spectacularly at assassinating the dragon, and so now he's a thrall of the dragon. Like, there's some really fun ideas in here, but I wanted I guess a more adventure structured around all of this content in particular. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Titanhall Academy. Pro: the 5 colleges reflect different aspects of non-magical gameplay. I think the Designers do a pretty good job of looking at the different fighting styles and what would make sense for a non-magical campus that was still in a fantasy medieval, themed world. And I think, yeah, an outdoors campus is a good idea. A crafting campus is a cool idea. One that's specifically built on subterfuge and deception and skulking around is a good idea. It reminds me a lot of the Laurie and Corey Cole, who built the Quest for Glory games, one of my favorite video game series of all time. They went back and made a Hero U video game, which was literally a campus for adventurers, and it reminded me of that, where you could go on these you have like classes during the day, and then during the evening you've got off time where you can practice and up your stats, but then there's also a whole story, and it's really a free form, like, kind of life simulator. I was gonna almost compare it to Persona in that way. Obviously not nearly as big production value or all that RPG-ness, but a similar system where it's like you're attending school and you're also going on the adventure. So I like the idea of these magical schools. But as we get to the con, I feel like there's some missing content here. Pro, 5 new player backgrounds and over a dozen magic items and NPC stat blocks. I think the content that is here is very solid, especially the player backgrounds seem very, very powerful, and the new abilities that they give you actually feel like you would use them. In fact, like, let's look at, I think it's the Memnor one we can look at. Let's see. Fighting style. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in the combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised deals an additional 1d6 damage of your weapon's damage type, which is great because you're probably going to be trying to surprise people as much as you can, and also, you've got probably a high dex, so you're moving before people. So it just builds right in, and it just becomes like almost another class feature, whereas I feel like a lot of player backgrounds that people take, the specific like feature you get, you never use because it's just some kind of out of combat like thing that's easily forgotten. So props to that for making it powerful. Some of them may even be a little too powerful just because the base game ones are so bad and undertuned. And I think I like the feats and the stat blocks, the magic items, all of that stuff is really solid. Pro, Clobber and Clockworks and Kota Pellet are both really awesome extracurricular side activities you can do. Those two specifically, I think, are the ones that I'm calling out as being what I wanted more from this, which is, extra things that a player can do besides just attending classes, because that's what makes these kind of stories more entertaining. Is nobody watches, Harry Potter because they want to see those classroom scenes. I mean, they're fun for a montage, but what's fun is what you do on your off time, and you're going around to do these extracurricular activities, or you're going on the adventures and all that. So that's what I wanted to see, and I think doing a whole BattleBot scene could be a lot of fun. Playing war games could be a lot of fun during the off time. And Pro, Armadillo Folk, I like them. I'm a fan, even though they're basically slightly reskinned turtles. But at this point, that's what most of the races are probably going to end up being. And I mean, who doesn't like this art? It's fucking cute as hell. Cons. It's just lacking in content compared to Strixhaven, and it is meant to be a rival to Strixhaven. It's a martial version. I mean, the map, like, look, I know you're not going to have Magic the Gathering money for your art budget, but if there was ever a time to put all of your art budget into one piece of art, it's probably going to be your campus art, because then you could take all the pieces and crop them out and put them on the top, put them on the front of your campus section. That would have really helped sell this whole product quite well. But that's not what I'm really complaining about. What I'm complaining about, I think, is just the lack of adventure content, specifically if you are trying to craft this school, or at least adventure hooks. Like, maybe each college could have used, hey, here's 3 ideas for, adventure tasks that players could be doing, or something on there, but it really doesn't have anything like that. And like I said, it kind of almost feels like a very fancy Dramatis Personae with a bunch of player-focused, content to use. And then the other con I want to say, and so I wrapped up kind of all my stuff in that one, where it's far less detailed and encompassing compared to Strixhaven. But I also feel like we're really missing a school for barbarians here. I don't think, God, I hate having to pronounce this word over and over again. The final one, the one's founded by a stone giant, the one for monks, I feel like, it's more for monks than barbarians, even though it's got the arena. And and I get you don't want to maybe do the whole savage thing, which is perfectly fine, but you can do a school of jocks. Like, that should be the whole thing. There should be, and we're really lacking in sports here, for one thing. And I think that would be an easy way to do the whole barbarian, is just make a bunch of, sports meathead school, college that's all about, and do all the sports tropes. and have it be, instead of when they're raging, it's just their adrenaline coming through, and it's they're competing all the time with these games. Like that I'm just spitballing here, but that would have been a whole college campus. And then you could have gotten that for your very high, the ones who specifically do just strength and con and nothing else, and total meatheads. Like that would be your campus. Like those folks should be able to go to school too. Damn it! At least if you give them a sports scholarship. All right, final verdict. As a non-magical university alternative, Titanhall Academy provides fun NPCs and useful new backgrounds, but it can't compete to its far more robust rival. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Thank you.